very interesting things to discuss here on our program, and what I'm going to start with is a little bit of your background as a martial artist. How did you get started?
Well, like any little kid, I used to watch the James Bond movies, and they really interest me, especially some of the martial arts they did in those days. And so I started jiu-jitsu down at the YMCA, and I enjoyed it. It was something different, and it's a real challenge as a little kid. It's about in the early 60s when I started that.
I noticed that you have rankings and degrees from quite a few different styles. We'll start a little bit in the background here, and you received your first black belt from Tracy's Kempo Karate School in 1971. Yeah,
Tracy's is a great system. It was a system that was well organized. It was a system where everyone got a private lesson, which was great because each week I counted on my private lesson and I got to learn my own individual material, so it kept me motivated. One thing good about their system, especially at that age, it's hard to keep kids motivated. And it motivated me enough to where I got deeper and deeper into this system, to eventually I was an instructor, a junior instructor. And once I started teaching, I got more interested in it and went from there.
I noticed here that you also trained under Master Ed Parker.
Yes, Mr. Parker, God bless him, passed away a few years ago. I used to be a personal private student of his. I used to take lessons at his house in Pasadena. I was a first generation black belt under him. Matter of fact, I didn't know if you knew this, he used to teach Elvis Presley. And Mr. Ed Parker kind of put everything together for me. I studied Kempo under Tracy's. Al and Jim Tracy's were third-degree black belts under Mr. Ed Parker. And so I always wanted to meet the man, as they called him. And so I went to his house, met him, he interviewed me, and he accepted me as a private student. And one thing I found very interesting, he had all the concepts, the theories, and a lot of things I didn't really get from the other schools. And that could have been maybe my fault, but Mr. Parker was a genius and a scholar, and he presented his martial art in such a way that was so interesting. You couldn't really argue with the facts on paper, and you couldn't really argue with him. He's a great martial artist.
Well, going down the list here, it's quite a list. It's very impressive. I noticed another master's name, Master Tino Tuyo Losega.
Lima Lama, Hands of Wisdom. Mr. Tino and I met 15 years ago, maybe longer than that. He married one of my students, Adele, and she was my student, and we just talked the other day. Matter of fact, she started with me in 1969 in one of my first schools. Actually, when I was not quite a black belt then. And she brought Mr. Tino into my school in California. Northern California had a large school there, and introduced him. However, I never had met him, and she then introduced and told me who he was, and he offered to teach me. I had a little in there since she was my student and his wife. So I started taking lessons from him at his house, and incredible master. I kind of named him the father of modern self-defense. His system is so incredible. It's so practical, so useful in our modern days. A lot of systems, traditional systems, were invented 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and they were meant for those times. Well, Mr. Tino, as we call him, invented this system that takes very little energy, very practical, and it's effective against not only one opponent, but several opponents, because the movements are so efficient that you basically get rid of your opponent very quickly. Also, he was like a father to me, and he still is. I was promoted to 7th degree last year under Mr. Tino, and he's going to be coming over here in Maui. Matter of fact, in July of this year, 1997, and he's going to be doing some seminars. So you will have the opportunity of meeting him yourself.
Great. I look forward to that. Now, having trained in these different type styles and systems. I noticed that you created your own system.
Yeah, Ying Qing Dao means ever-changing way. And it's just like our society. Things change every day. And I didn't want to get similar to Bruce Lee, not his style, but his thoughts. Styles, methods change. Some systems stay the same. That's fine for the person who wants to do a traditional system, but times change. There's a lot of gangs out there now. People use guns. There's different types of attacks. And so you have to adapt to the environment. So I developed this system, Ying Qing Dao, that encompasses a lot of aspects from all the systems I studied. It's very effective. It's a beautiful art. It's very flowing also as you get more into the movements. It doesn't require size. You can be a very small person and make it very effective as well. Now the nice thing about it, I tailor the system to each person's individual needs. So I might teach one person this system a little bit different from another person, such as maybe a woman who wants self-defense. I might tailor it to her needs, or say a child of 9 years old. He might have other needs, and maybe he needs a little bit more discipline, so we incorporate some of the traditional methods in there in discipline. Aloha! My name's Sifu Douglas McLeod, the Grand Master of Ying Qing Dao Martial Arts. Today I'm going to be teaching you the street cane, the basic level. This is one of the most important weapons there is. Why? Two reasons. One, it's legal. You can carry this weapon anywhere you want, any part of the world. It is internationally known as you might say a crutch or a cane, and people accept it. It comes in, I block. Another method, remember this part of the cane you can use? Boom, right in the solar plex. Okay? From here, a diagonal down, come around, follow up with figure 8 motion. Good, good.
Welcome back. Once again, I'm your host, Bob Figg, here today with Master Doug McLeod.
Here's a story. I went to military school when I was, 13, 12, and I studied a style. I'm not going to give the particular name, but it was very heavy into discipline. Okay. Well, so was military school, and I kind of wanted to study a system more like a family system. A lot of Chinese systems and Kempo systems were more individual systems that they tailor to individual needs. Discipline's great, and I think those type of styles are great for some people. But being in military school, I wanted to have a little fun too, and the system I studied, you know, they're primarily into exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, getting yourself in condition. Well, I was in pretty good condition anyway, and I really wanted to study the martial arts more in detail, the kicking, the hand strikes, the self-defense techniques, the philosophy behind it, and unfortunately that system didn't give me the opportunity. So after military school, I was lucky enough to connect with the Tracys, and then I started getting into the, like I said earlier, more in the philosophy and the multi-use of the movements, which then I really was very enjoyable. And so one thing I like to make a point to, you know, the viewing audience, study a system that you're going to enjoy. If it is a traditional system like Taekwondo or a karate system that are more military systems that do stress discipline, then make sure you enjoy it. Don't go to a system like that because you think you need discipline. Or parents, please don't send your kids to those systems because you think your child needs discipline. Discipline comes at home first. Sending them to a martial arts school and a child has absolutely no discipline from his home bringing is not going to be a very enjoy the system very much, or will he be a very good student? There are some exceptions to the rule, but put your child or yourself into a system that you're going to enjoy, a system that tailors to your personal needs, and that's what it's all about.
It's extremely interesting, and I noticed that not only have you originated the Yen Qing Dao system, the ever-changing way, but you also started a system that kind of branches out into other areas and focuses a little bit more on the needs of children and women, and that's the Street Smart system of self-defense.
Yeah, I'm really proud of this system. We started this several years ago. It's a nonprofit corporation, and we just got what we call a 501c rating, which is a charitable organization. So people who do donate money, it's a tax write-off for them. And the purpose of the organization is to help our community. There's a lot of crime, especially domestic crime, on the islands. You'll be shocked.
Hey.
Street Smart, what we do is we do counseling, we do seminars, we teach individual needs for women who maybe were in domestic violence situations or maybe were attacked or raped. We get into a lot of prevention aspects, and such as awareness. We teach a person how to be aware of their environment. Prevention, how to prevent situations. A lot of this is simple ideas. Preparation, preparing yourself. If you are in that situation, studying a martial art system, traditional martial arts especially, or basically almost any martial arts system, isn't the most practical thing to do in women's self-defense. You need a system that is a lot of prevention awareness, but more important, you know, you want to learn some of the statistics in your area. If there is a crime problem, if there's a rape problem, you want to know, are you in danger in your neighborhood or your area, or where are you going to be traveling? Also, the movements that we teach are very simple. They aren't from any particular martial arts system. We don't teach high kicks because to teach a high kick takes a lot of training. And a lot of women, one, don't have the time, and a 60-year-old woman really isn't going to be practicing high kicks to try to protect herself. We're going to teach her how to use environmental weapons, street weapons. So we teach very practical aspects of self-defense and prevention. And the key word here is prevention and awareness. the system I'm very proud of, and I hope it will help the community, and I hope there's people out there who will donate to our cause, because it's a worthy cause, trying to keep the crime rate down here on the islands. The islands are beautiful, but you know, the crime keeps increasing like it has been, and assaults and rapes. This is going to hurt the tourist industry, but more important, it's going to hurt that individual person.
So I noticed in your Street Smart system that you apply a lot of common sense, instilling a greater sense of awareness of one's environment. It can actually alleviate a lot of the potentials for these things to happen.
Exactly right. And hopefully we can spread this throughout all the islands.
How many years have you been training?
30 years, over 30 years seriously, 35 years. I say seriously because when I was a little kid, a lot of times, kids, you don't really take it serious and it's fun, but I've been studying for over 30 years very seriously. I started in the early 60s.
I see here you were given a master level by Mr. Tino Tulio Lasega in the Lima Llama Arts of Self-Defense in 1985. And since then, you've come up, as I said, with the Yenqing Dao system, your own system. Mm-hmm. Is that like a natural extension, or was that just an endeavor that you had? Did you plan on creating your own system? Did you see that earlier in your training? Or
I started my system after about 20 years of training. And as the name implies, ever-changing way, I constantly do change it. After I stayed with Mr. Tino, I incorporated a lot of new movements and a lot of new theory and concept, because his system isn't based on a lot of excessive movements or excessive blocking. We do a lot of slipping and going over the movement, controlling your opponent. A lot of grappling, but it's a different type of stand-up grappling we get involved in. And so I add to the Yenqing Dao. And yeah, I started the Yenqing Dao martial arts system in it was 1978, 76, in that era, after about 20 years of training. Now some people say, oh, who's this person to start their own system? Well, I studied, as you can see, from many grandmasters, including Sifu Wing Lam in the Kung Fu system, Northern Ceylon. I studied over 14 Chinese and Japanese weapons, studied from Tadashi Yamashita. And so trying to study them all together every day just didn't work. So by incorporating them together and developing a situation where I felt this would be the best method for a student to learn, that's what I did.
We'll be back in just a moment with Sifu McLeod.